special summer edition of Eye of the Storm, a Guelph Storm podcast with myself, Ryan Drury, the voice of your Guelph Storm on television. I'm very pleased to be joined by a guy that Storm Nation is very familiar with now after his first season behind the mic, the radio voice of your Guelph Storm on CJOY. Ladies and gentlemen, very pleased to be joined by the very talented, very handsome young man here, Mr. Dylan Baker. Bakes, how you doing?
Ryan, I am great. I'm so excited to be on the podcast. Thank you so much for having me. It was a treat to work with you in year one, and I'm excited to be on the pod.
Let's start there because there's a lot to talk about. You were obviously out at the Memorial Cup. You were doing a bunch of media stuff for the CHL. I know you were involved with all the in-arena stuff as well in terms of announcing, and you've been doing that for a while now. But let's start with that, your first year in Guelph. First of all, you're a young guy. You've already carved out a really impressive path for yourself in terms of your career. Tell everybody a little bit about how it all kind of came together that you ended up being the new radio voice of the Storm when the legendary Larry Mellott decided he was going to step aside.
Well, first of all, thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that. And you know what? I had always wanted to be in the Ontario Hockey League, whether that was, doing TV, doing radio, whatever it might have been. It was always a goal of mine to get to the OHL, as I'm sure it was for you. And I think it is for a lot of young broadcasters in Ontario. So I always had my eyes set on a job in the Ontario Hockey League if one ever came to be. It's hard to get a job in the Ontario Hockey League. There are only so many of them. And the people who occupy those jobs love those jobs and never really want to let them go. Right. So I heard Larry was retiring, and Larry, obviously a legend, not just in Guelph, but around the Ontario Hockey League. Everybody who was an OHL fan over the years knew of at least Larry Mellott. And so when Larry retired, I kept my eye on it, and I had a couple of connections with the OHL, the CHL through the years working for the Canadian Hockey League. And I said, hey, let me know if this opens up, because I didn't know what the process was going to be. I didn't know if they were going to hire somebody internally, if they weren't going to open it up, what it was going to look like. So I said, hey, let me know if this opens up. And it was actually the public address announcer for the London Knights, Mike Louie, who saw this job posting and sent it to me and said, hey, I know you've been waiting for a job opening. I think you'd be great for this one. And so, I submitted my application. A couple of weeks later, I was hired and getting my start in Guelph. So it was a really quick experience, quick little scenario there to get the job with the Storm. It all happened pretty fast, but I'm super grateful for it, and it's been awesome being with the Storm.
Now, you're 20 now, but when the season started, you were just all of 19 years old, which is like really incredible stuff. I was just starting college, and I don't think a lot of people realized you were still attending classes at university while calling the games. Like, you must have put some serious mileage on the vehicle this year, but your start in broadcasting goes way back. Like, dude, you got started doing this stuff when you were like 12, 13 years old, correct? In baseball and with the GOHL as well.
Yes. So I started a podcast with my dad when I was 12 talking baseball, because baseball was my number one sport growing up. I played it every year. I was a huge baseball guy. So my dad and I started a podcast back in 2018 and loved that, did that. And then, one of my assistant coaches for my baseball team left because he was joining a lot of majors of the Intercounty Baseball League to be their pitching coach. And he said to me, he's like, hey, I think they're starting these live streams this year. You should apply. You should try to get in. So I did. I sent an email out and I sent my podcast. I was like, listen, here's what I've got. I don't have any experience doing any live broadcasts, but I'd love to be a part of this any way I can, whether that's going to get somebody water, whether that's being on the air. I don't care. I just want to be around it. And so, sure enough, Matt Hiscox, who's the director of media relations with London Majors, gave me the opportunity after, hearing from the owners, Rup Chanadad and Scott Dart. And so I was thrust into baseball at 13 years old in 2019. And I loved that. It was so cool. I was working with a guy by the name of Noah Smith, who I had on a few Storm radio calls with me this season. And Noah was so instrumental in just kind of bringing me along, because I had never done something like that before. So that was kind of my first foray into broadcasting, into live broadcasting back in 2019. And then Rup Chanadad, who I mentioned, who owns the London Majors, he also owns the Kamoka Kings of the GOHL. And he said, hey, we're looking for somebody in Kamoka. Have you ever wanted to do hockey? And I said, well, yeah, I've always wanted to do hockey. So he gave me the opportunity in Kamoka. Super grateful for that. And I stayed there in Kamoka up until this season when I joined the Storm. I was doing stuff for the GOHL, for 519 Sports Online as well. So yeah, just kind of picking up opportunities where I could. But yeah, got my start in the Intercounty Baseball League, and then in the GOHL in 2019 when I was 13, turning 14 that year.
It's incredible stuff. And I think quickly for any young broadcasters that are watching or listening to this, there's two lessons to be had here. One, much like Dylan did, don't be afraid to put yourself out there no matter your age and use the connections you have. Like, don't be afraid to ask people for a leg up if you can, get yourself in the door. Like Dylan said, he was willing to go get water for somebody and it turned into something a lot bigger. And two, for people that, run these teams and, want some more publicity, don't be afraid to take a chance on a young guy. It might turn into a future OHL broadcaster. You never know. Dylan, you did a great job your first year. I tuned in whenever I could when you were on the road, because obviously the TV crews, we don't go on the road. So I tuned in and listened quite a bit. You've already got such a great grasp on the game and the team, and including an eventful night for you in Owen Sound when the internet didn't work. So,
we should tell that story, Ryan. We should tell that story.
Please. Well, you go ahead.
Ryan saved my butt in Owen Sound is the story there, because I have sometimes a large amount of time devoted to the out of town scoreboard in my intermissions, depending on, what kind of interviews I've got that day, what some of the storylines are. On a November night in Owen Sound, middle of the season, there's not a ton going on around the league, right? And maybe, whoever my interviews were that day didn't give me a whole lot of time. I don't remember what the situation was, but I had like 3-4 minutes dedicated to just the out of town scores that night in the first intermission. And Owen Sound is a lovely rink with lovely people. And I love our trips to Owen Sound.
Great fries. Great fries.
Did try those.
Yes.
But when I was there, I discovered the internet is not exactly spectacular in Owen Sound. It is hard to connect to the internet and stay connected to the internet throughout the night. That is a real challenge. So we get to the first intermission. There's about, 4 minutes on the clock. So about 3 minutes for me to fill before we go to break and then come back for the second period. And I'm like, hey, I got nothing on these out of town scores. Like, I was just very honest with the audience. I said, I have nothing. I don't have internet connection. So here are the games that are happening, and I can't give you any updates on them. And Ryan, you reached out to me and you said, hey, this is what's going on. And I don't know how your message came through, but it did. And I'm grateful for it, because you said, here are the scores in Niagara, in Brantford, wherever the games were happening that night. So you bailed me out big time in my trip to Owen Sound.
So what people don't realize is, like, a lot of the time Dylan is doing these broadcasts by himself. Like, he had his buddy Noah with him a few different times. Seems like a great guy. Hopefully we see him around the rink more. But, like, generally Dylan is by himself up there. And I've called lots of games on television and radio, which is where I got my start, by myself. It's a challenge because, like, hockey's fast. Like, there's no breaks. Like, you're talking a mile a minute, and then you have nobody to lean on to kind of give you a bit of a break. And the intermissions can be a nightmare because you got nobody to kind of bounce stuff off of. So yeah, I happened to be tuned in that night. I was sitting in a rink in Woodstock helping my girlfriend film a men's league game. I don't know why, but I was like, well, I'll tune in and see what's going on in Owen Sound. And I heard you, and I think my message just simply came through on Twitter through data. Because I was like, let's see if I can get this through to him. I got the whole scoreboard right here. It went through, and you managed to kill some time. I don't know if saved your butt is quite accurate. I helped you out a little bit.
Well, I didn't plan for a lack of internet in Owen Sound, and that was a mistake, because every future game in Owen Sound, I did plan for a lack of internet just in case. But that must have been either the first or the second trip that the Storm made to Owen Sound last season, and so I had no idea what I was walking into, and I had budgeted a fair amount of time for this. So yeah, like, it was a challenge. It was a challenge, and like you mentioned, like, working solo is not always the easiest thing to do, and it was the thing that I grew up on. Right, I worked solo in hockey in Komoka for all of those years. So I was used to it. But the part that I didn't do in Komoka was the intermissions, right? That was totally new to me. I didn't know how to fill the intermissions. And I spoke with Larry, I spoke with Dave Blizzard from 1460 CJOY, and Douglas Facey, who is my technical producer during the games. And I said, how did Larry fill these intermissions? What was kind of the process here? And he said, well, it was interviews, it was stories, it was whatever it was, out of town scoreboard. I spoke to Mike Stubbs as well in London. And I just didn't have enough interviews planned that night. I didn't have it all. I didn't have a great grasp of what I was walking into in Owen Sound. And so I ran into some trouble. But needless to say, I was ready every other trip to the Bay Shore last season.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen. You know what? I have time sometimes on the home broadcast. I'm just going to start coming down to visit you. we'll do a little 5 minute visit,
There you
like
go. There you
I
go.
got
Yeah.
time to spare for you. All right.
Perfect.
That's
Perfect.
awesome, man. No, you did a great job this first year. Really excited to hear what you
Thank
have in
you.
store for us on the airwaves in the second year. And it's a big second year, brother, because the Memorial Cup is coming to town. And like we mentioned off the top, you've been busy doing a lot of CHL events. Of course, Dylan, very fluent in French, which is important for CHL events, doing all the in arena announcing. You have to be able to do it in French, which I cannot. So you were out at the Memorial Cup this year in beautiful Kelowna, BC, an incredible tournament that saw the Kitchener Rangers. I know Storm fans don't want to reflect on that, but the Kitchener Rangers did win the Memorial Cup. You were there with a front row seat to all this, man. Tell us a little bit about your experience out in Kelowna and how the tournament ran.
It was unbelievable, really an unbelievable weekend or unbelievable 2 weeks, I should say. I was out there for 12 days, I think, and it's a busy time. There's a lot on the go, especially if you're working the Memorial Cup. Now, if you're coming as a fan, there was so much to do in Kelowna. You could go hike, you could go to wineries, you could check out everything. You could explore really a gorgeous region in the Okanagan. But working it was very busy. The day to day was jam packed. But like you said, Ryan, it was a really great tournament. There was lots of great hockey throughout all of the games during the 2 weeks in Kelowna, and some great events as well. There's the arrival of the Cup, which is a yearly staple at the Memorial Cup that kicks things off on the Thursday. Big parade coming into downtown Kelowna. I'm excited to see what Guelph has in store next year for that parade, really to get everybody in the Memorial Cup spirit, if you will, and set the tone for the first game on the Friday night, where the host team is always in action against one of the other leagues. They also unveil the commemorative jersey at that event, and that'll be a really cool piece next year. But there's lots of ancillary events that are around the Memorial Cup that I think a lot of people don't often think about. There's lots on the go. There's live music. There's a big fan fest. There's tons of merchandise. There's really a lot to do in and around the Memorial Cup. It's not just the games. And when you did get to the games, it was a really great atmosphere in Prospera Place. That really impressed me. I had never been out to Kelowna before. I didn't know what the fan support was like in Kelowna for the Rockets games. And the fans not only came out in droves, but were super engaged the entire time. They were in it from the opening puck drop. They loved any big hits that their Rockets were able to lay, and they stayed engaged throughout the whole tournament. So a great atmosphere at the games, a great atmosphere around the rink, around downtown. It's a great setup in Kelowna, too. The rink is right on the water, right downtown. So really a 10 out of 10 experience this year in Kelowna, and an awesome, awesome event once again.
The fans are certainly engaged out there. It's a great junior hockey market. I got to ask you quick, like, how many times did a fan pull you aside and let you know that they won 3 straight Memorial Cups in the 90s? Like, how many times did you hear that? I got to think it's double digits.
I honestly didn't hear it one time, not one
Really?
time. So
Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
You
Because
know
they're
what?
very
I
proud of that out there.
maybe it's because I was tucked away upstairs and I didn't see
Yeah.
all that many people all the time. Maybe that's
Okay.
why.
Yeah, you were too busy, and boy, you were busy. I mean, talk about all the events. We're going to dig into that in terms of what that might look like for Guelph coming up in 2027. But man, if you guys don't follow Dylan on social media, you should, because he's an
Thank you.
important guy, okay? But I saw you out there because I was on vacation while the tournament was going on, like 3 hours south of you in beautiful Port Moody. So I was paying attention, and they had you jumping all over the place. Dude, you were on a boat. You were like in the woods. You were on the street. Like they had you all over the place, brother.
Yeah, you know what? I had the really unique opportunity this year to do the stand-up game preview videos, and one of the things that I had done previously with the GOHL was do those stand-ups for 519 right before all of our spotlight games, and we'd kind of go to various spots around the cities, around the rinks, and try to show off the market that we were in. So when they asked me to do them in Kelowna, I said, you know what? Let's do the same thing that we've been doing. Let's showcase different spots. So the opening game we were pretty tame. We were on the bench, right at ice level, showing off the rink, and then progressively got a little bit crazier and crazier. We were by a statue, and then we were on the boardwalk, and then we were on a boat for the last game of the round robin, and that was really cool. And a funny story about that: my buddy Max, who also did some games with me for the Storm this season, he was there for the last couple of home games, and he lives in Kelowna. He's from Kelowna. And so, we were out to lunch one day because, I had to catch up with him while I was out there. And I said to him, I was like, I really want to do a video on a boat. That's kind of my goal here. We're doing all these videos. I want to do one on a boat. I don't care if I have to rent a kayak, if I have to rent a paddle boat, whatever it is. He said, well, I've got a boat. You can use my boat. I said, really? That's unbelievable. So, we got on Max's boat. We recorded this video. I was able to convince Carla Keller, who was the director of national events at the CHL, to allow us to bring the Memorial Cup on the boat, and that was really cool. What you didn't see on camera was that every time the camera wasn't rolling, I had the Memorial Cup cradled like this the entire time, just holding it in my arms. I'm like,
Yeah.
I am not dropping this thing in the Okanagan. But no, I'm super grateful for that opportunity because it was really cool to kind of explore the city and showcase different things. Be it the fan breakfast, be it the Hockey Hall of Fame exhibit that was in Kelowna as well. So Scott Van Kunen, Matt Tidcombe, Nikki DeCarl, who were kind of behind that. For me, a big thanks to them because I really enjoyed that, getting to see different places and getting to do different things, on camera as well at the Memorial Cup.
Now, obviously, you mentioned, there's a bunch of different stuff that you could do out there. They always try, no matter what city they're in, to kind of really engage the fans and also kind of the broader community. And the Guelph, team that put together their Memorial Cup bid said as much. Like, they want this to be a community celebration to kind of tie in with the 200th birthday of the city. When you were out there, like, how did Kelowna kind of do that? I remember talking with Matt Newby, the VP of Business Ops for the Storm, when they were researching kind of putting their bid together and what they saw in Saginaw. And he was like, man, the whole community and even surrounding communities, there was Memorial Cup stuff everywhere. They kept everybody engaged. How did you see that come together in Kelowna, and how do you think that'll come together in Guelph?
You know what? I think Kelowna did a really great job, just like Saginaw did, putting up Memorial Cup signage around the city. There was, of course, that great big Memorial Cup statue that was in front of one of the hotels in Kelowna, the Delta Grand. And so that was really cool. A lot of the businesses embraced it. A lot of the businesses knew they were going to get foot traffic. They were going to get tons of people in the city for the Memorial Cup. So there were art exhibits. So I did a video next to one of them, that beaver statue, I think, with the Memorial Cup, just kind of showcasing that the event was in the city. A lot of businesses had promotions. I went to a restaurant for lunch and they had a Rockets burger and Rockets fries that you could order because it was the Memorial Cup. So they wanted to offer that. Little pieces of community pride like that were great. In the arrival of the Cup, I think every city does something a little bit different, right? And so this year, there was one of the Indigenous communities out in the Kelowna region that actually canoed the Memorial Cup across the Okanagan to bring it in for the parade. Really, really cool. Last year in Rimouski, there were a couple of military members who rappelled from a helicopter with the Memorial Cup. Like, everybody kind of does things a little bit differently, and it's really cool to see. There's kind of that local flavor to everything that they do, and then there are the staple events, right? There's the Hockey Hall of Fame exhibit, which is there every year. Like I mentioned, there's the arrival of the Cup. There's the fan breakfast every year as well, which is such a great event. And I've had the privilege of being at the last few, and then and the arrival of the Cup, like I said, and all these little events that are kind of around the Memorial Cup that help bring everybody together. There's the family zone that they had this year, like a lot of different things to try to engage every part of the community. One of the special ones, I think, is the ball hockey tournament they had this year. They had it last year in Rimouski, and I think they had it in Saginaw as well. I was a little bit less involved in Saginaw than I was the last two, so I don't have a super recollection of that, but just trying to engage, the older fans who are maybe season ticket holders for a long time in the community, as well as some of the younger fans that maybe have been introduced to the local hockey, maybe haven't, but kind of bring them in for what is a marquee event on the hockey calendar every year.
Now, I remember the Army guys rappelling down with it, and I saw the video of the Indigenous community kind of canoeing it across the Okanagan this year. I wonder how we're topping that in Guelph. Like, I know that the committee's got a lot of things cooked up, and by the way, if you haven't seen it, the Storm social media team has been doing such a great job over the last couple weeks of showcasing some of the things that they've already unveiled that's going to be going on, and there's going to be even more details shared about that as we approach the season opener. And by the way, we're recording this Tuesday, June 9th. The home opener is September 18th. Erie Otters in town. Bakes and I will be there. Come say hi to us. It's going to be great. But there's going to be a lot more details shared about all the huge events. There's so much planned already for Guelph hosting it. But I think what we need to do is get you in front of the old church with some Storm alumni. Maybe we get the O-Dog out and you guys rollerblade the Memorial Cup into the mall, into the rink. How about that? That's what we should do.
You want me, Dylan Baker, who is the radio broadcaster, and Jeff O'Neill, the O-Dog, who has a much higher profile than me, to rollerblade the Memorial Cup into the rink?
Does he have a bigger? I don't know, man. You're a pretty big star, but like it could be you. It could be you, the O-Dog, current players. Maybe we get like a big guy to protect the cup out there, like Grant
There we
Spada
go.
or something like that, right? A couple other alumni. Let's call up
Yep.
Drew Doughty. Let's get Dustin Brown out. And you guys can all just collectively rollerblade into the mall right out to center ice.
I love it. I love it. That's an amazing idea. I don't know if they've
I
thought of
don't
that
know.
yet. I will pitch it. I will pitch it. You and I can go into the pitch deck and we can be ready to go.
Will you and I'll talk to Lisa and it'll go from there because she listens to
There we go.
everything I say, right? So
Absolutely.
I'm just
Absolutely.
kidding,
Yes.
Lisa. They've got something really special cooked up. I know they
Yes.
do. It's going to be
Yeah.
incredible. Man, like I said, you get through your first year, you've done all these great CHL events, including a couple Memorial Cups. So you already kind of have a ground floor view of what this thing is going to look like. But now that you're through your first year with the Storm, you're a Storm guy. You're the radio voice of the Guelph Storm. Like, how special is that? And what is it about the Guelph community that you've already been able to kind of drink in over the last year and a bit that you think makes Guelph special and is going to make it a great Memorial Cup host for the first time since 2002, buddy?
You know what? I think this is a community that really is passionate about the team. And I didn't know quite the extent of it when I joined the organization, when I joined the radio broadcast team for this year. I didn't quite know just how big it was in Guelph. And everybody in the region is so passionate about the Storm. They love the Guelph Storm. They love everything to do with this team. The rink has, great attendance every game. It's really special to see just what kind of brings the community together. And I think it's a community that has been itching for this opportunity again, and a community that's very deserving of it. And I think that the city will really rally around the Memorial Cup being there. It's a great venue. There are going to be some upgrades to the venue, and I think it's a special celebration, a 200th anniversary celebration that I think is going to be an important one for the city, obviously, and the Storm are a big part of this city, right? Everybody in the region rallies around this team. There are people that I spoke to that are not from Guelph, that are from surrounding areas like a Campbellville, for example, that say, "Hey, I'm a big Storm fan. So cool to see that you're doing the radio for the Storm this year." So it's a lot of different people that are in love with this team and that want to see this team succeed, and that I know will be at this event to support not just the Guelph games, but the games involving, every team that shows up. That was something that I thought was great over the last couple of years, in particular, the last two in Rimouski and Kelowna. It's been really noticeable just how much the community has come out to support every game. I think every game was sold out this year in Kelowna, which is a real testament to the passion of those fans. And I think that we'll see the same thing in Guelph. It's a community that loves their team. It's a community that loves their sport. There's plenty of hockey history in Guelph, not just with the Storm organization, the players and just various teams throughout the years in Guelph. So I think it's a community that is ready to host the Memorial Cup. I think it is a community that is a perfect junior hockey market. It's not too big of a city. It's a sizable city, but not too big, and everybody loves their team. And I think that's going to make for a great event in 2027.
Yeah, I agree, man. Guelph, that's one special thing about it. Like it's a little big town. That's what I like to describe
Yes.
it as.
Yeah.
It's a little big town. Like it's a big city with a small town feel, and it all seems to kind of coalesce around the Quebec Street Mall and the Sleeman Center. And I know that there's some people that are, detractors of the venue. I think it's going to be spectacular. It's a unique venue, but I've been able to broadcast a lot of games there now, and so have you. And it's a really special arena, man. Like the team has had some struggles over the last couple years on the ice. The crowd is spectacular. Like the fan support that we see, and you talk to the fan, like I'm sure you wander the concourse like I do. Like people are constantly stopping us, telling us what fun it is. And Matt and his team, Matt Newby and the entire front office on the business side, like they do an unbelievable job making it a great place to come watch a game.
They really do. They really do. The in-game experience is great. They have a ton of different activations for fans to enjoy throughout intermissions, throughout TV timeouts. It's a really great atmosphere to watch a game in. There's tons for everybody to do. There's plenty of memorabilia around the concourse as well. The shop is great. It's great size. You have plenty of room to go get Storm merchandise. It's really a great venue to watch a game. And one of I went to see a game in Guelph. Would have been January of 2024. It was my first ever time being at the Sleeman Center. I got a couple of buddies from Guelph, and I went to see a game with them during my holiday break from school. And the first thing that stood out to me was the open concourse, right? You can see the game from anywhere. You're walking around, you can see the ice. That's something that not every rink has. right? You grow up going to games in different places, and not every rink has the ability to showcase, the ice from every vantage point in the arena. So that's something that really sets Guelph apart and is really going to be unique for fans next year. Is when they come to this Memorial Cup, they can go get food in the concession, turn around and see a goal getting scored. Right? They can see the ice from everywhere, and it's a building that is. It's not a huge venue. It's not quite the size of Canada Life Place in London or the Videotron Center in Quebec, right? It's not these massive buildings. It's perfect junior hockey size. It's a beautiful venue, and it's only going to get better with these upgrades for 2027.
Absolutely. It's going to be really exciting stuff. I got to ask you before I let you go, because like I said, you're in school, you're a busy guy, all right? You just got back from a long, work trip out to Kelowna. We got to let you go get some rest here. I'm sure you're still jet lagged. I know I am. What was the standout moment for you? If you could pick out a favorite moment, whether it be a call or just a moment covering the storm in your first season, what sticks out for you?
I think there were a lot of great moments. First of all, I really enjoyed. There was that crazy game where they were wearing the jockstraps uniforms against Brantford in January, where they scored. I think it was 4 or 5 in the first period. I think it was 8 combined goals between the two teams in the first. That was a crazy period. Everybody was so excited about the jerseys, and then the team comes out like gangbusters and scores 4 goals. I think they were up 4-1 at one point in that first. Just a crazy game. But I think the first moment where I was like, this was really special, really, really cool. Leo Serlin scored an overtime winner in, I want to say, October against Saginaw at home. It was the first weekend of October, I think. And just hearing the pop of that crowd when he scored that goal, I was like, okay, this is awesome. This is really cool. This is a spot that, I love to be. And I enjoyed every game that I did in Guelph, but that was kind of the one where I was like, okay, this is going to be a really awesome year. And sure enough, it was. That was a really special moment. For me, it was first overtime winner I've ever called in the OHL, which as a broadcaster you live for moments like that. So it was awesome, and just to hear the pop of the crowd, that was probably the first moment. I don't know if there's one that stands out as the best, but the first moment where I was like, this is incredible, and that was a really, really special moment for me when Serlin scored that OT winner. It was a gorgeous goal too, I might add. I don't know if you remember that goal. I could hear you on the
I
call while I
remember.
was making my call. Yeah, yeah, and it was a really great deke by Serlin, and a really really awesome goal to win it.
Yeah, I remember the goal. It was a good one. I remember most of the OT winners in particular. Yeah, that's and that's a great one to point out because yeah, you get that first real exciting OT moment in, your home crowd now that you're going to be a part of hopefully for a long time, and yeah, that'll always stand out for sure. Do you remember anybody that stuck out as well? That was just a really interesting interview that you got to do, whether it was a player, member of the coaching staff, visiting team. Was there an interview that stuck out to you where you're just like, wow, that was, something I didn't really expect?
Well, Corey Stillman is a great interview. I
Yeah,
think a lot of people, think that a hockey guy is not going to give you a whole lot. But I interviewed Corey. I interviewed a member of the coaching staff before every game, and I would say 60 of the 68 regular season games, maybe more. That was Corey. And every time Corey gave me great answers. He's a really good talker. He's a really good interview. He's really good at giving you, what you need, right? You need answers about whatever it is, and Corey's a really good interview. Some interesting guys. I think the guy that stands out, the player that stands out for everybody last year was Ethan Miedema. Ethan Miedema is a great talker, great conversation, great interview. I think we sat down for close to 10 minutes in the playoffs before Game 1 against Windsor, and just kind of talking about scoring his 100th goal in his last regular season game, and the journey that he had, and when he reached 300 games in North Bay in December, we had another great conversation where he kind of just reminisced, and he's a really thoughtful guy. His answers are very thoughtful, and a guy I really like talking to. Tyler Hopkins, another one, joined the team mid-season. He's a great interview. He will give you a lot, and he's happy to tell you stories, whatever you need. So I really enjoyed speaking to everybody on the team. Really, there was no bad experience with any player on the roster. I think that's a credit to the players, to the coaching staff, to George Burnett, the GM, and to Lisa and the PR team in Guelph is making sure that these guys are ready to talk. They all are. They're all great storytellers in their own right, and I think the stories that I got out of Miedema and Hopkins really stood out. But really, every guy on that roster was fantastic to talk to.
Yeah, it's a first-rate organization. We're pretty darn lucky, brother, and I can't wait for the upcoming year. It's going to be fantastic. I want to congratulate you again for your first year in the OHL under your belt. I remember mine like it was yesterday. It's a special, special fraternity that we're part of, man. It's an interesting gig, and it throws a lot at us, but it's a pleasure, and it was great to listen to you on the airwaves in your first year. I can't wait to see what you have in store for us on the airwaves in year two, and I'm excited to see you again at the Sleeman Center really soon, brother.
I really appreciate it, Ryan. Thanks for all your help throughout year one. And just echoing your sentiment. Can't wait to see you at the rink pretty soon.
Absolutely, man. Remember, you can find this podcast on all your favorite podcast apps, YouTube, and remember, there are ticket packages. They're already being sold. They're available. There's volunteers that are still being sought. If you want to get involved in what's going to be a very, very special Memorial Cup year in Guelph, please visit the Guelph Storm website. And for all your ticketing needs, you can visit or call the ticketing center at the Sleeman Center box office. We really appreciate Dylan Baker coming on the podcast. We'll be back next month with another summer special. It's going to be great. Can't wait to see everybody on September 18th for the home opener. This has been a very special edition of Eye of the Storm. We'll see you next time.